Hello, Rabbi Elisha. Thank you
I,
so much, really, for joining us. I super appreciate it. Thank you for your time, your wisdom. So, our topic today is what we call in Hebrew, it's a phrase that many Jews know, which is called Tikkun Olam. And we'll get a little bit later in trying to understand the real meaning of these words. The way that I've expressed it for this forum today is the idea of how to traditional responses, let's say, to unwanted things in life. That's kind of general. And that's where I've begun. So when we think about things that we don't want to happen in our lives, is our goal that to try to fix the world, to try to fix our lives, that these things shouldn't exist, as opposed to everything is perfect and let's just learn to appreciate and to meditate and all these kind of things. So again, the opening question is, can do we want to accept everything, or do we want to eradicate whatever evil is? Maybe we need to start there. So good luck. Take it away.
okay. Well, thank you. And also thank you for the invitation. And um, so I just want to first say that I don't have the truth in my pocket. I have thoughts, and I've been studying Jewish wisdom, world wisdom, human wisdom for many years. And just like all of us. And so I have my own thoughts, and I can share them. But I want to just make it really clear that I don't represent a particular truth. I'm not a big fan of statements like Judaism says that, or even that Kabbalah says that, because Judaism says one thing and it also says the opposite. And Kabbalah could often say one thing and also say the opposite. Um, and
Isn't
and I
that
have
what
to
we
be
love
honest.
about Judaism?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's like the great you know Tuvia Cholev, fiddle on the roof. Standing there with his old donkey, carrying the milk to his clients if he has any, talking to God each time one of his daughters wants to get married to a socialist, to a Zionist, to and he has this argument on the one hand, on the other hand, but on the one hand, so um, I'll be a bit of Tuvia today, and also to say there are days that I wake up in the morning and all of a sudden this path is really clear, and the following day it's not clear at all, and suddenly another path appears. So um, as we've been learning, here we are in this finite world that was created from infinity. So in infinity, all the paths exist and all the possibilities exist. And we are living in a finite world where it's supposedly either or. Um, so anything I'm going to say is just going to be just thoughts this evening. So Tikkun Olam, I've been struggling with that term for many years. First of all, it certainly appears in Jewish text, in the prayer book, and something I feel very connected with. What does it mean? Um, al panav, the pshat, the immediate meaning is fixing the world, repairing the world, and then if that's the case, then yeah, it sounds like the world is broken.
Yeah.
But there's a part of I'm sorry, there's a part of me that feels very strongly, intuitively, that the world is not indeed broken. and doesn't need our fixing. Yet, first of all, it says Tikkun Olam, fixing the world. So it demands an explanation. But secondly, we all know there's evil in the world. There's evil. Bad things happen to good people, and there's suffering. And now with the war between Russia invading Ukraine, and that's broken. Sounds so broken. How can we say it's not? And I don't want to get into this niche of being this privileged person in my office right now, lacking nothing right now, saying, oh, the world is perfect, we're just so trying to also be sensitive to those who are feeling suffering right now as we're speaking, and pain. So first of all,
Elisha, is suffering a choice? Pain is not.
Right. So they say, right, the pain is not a choice, but suffering is a choice. Well, as we often say in our courses, like yes and no, or yes, but. So maybe we'll get that in a second. I just want to say first about Tikkun Olam, about the phrase itself, that I think that the actual meaning of the word Tikkun Olam, the word tikkun, litaken, doesn't necessarily mean to fix. It can also mean, and I think the original meaning is this other meaning, to affix. It's basically, if we look at the story of creation, starting from chaos, tohu vavohu, which isn't necessarily chaos, but let's right now agree that the closest translation would be chaos. So from chaos, everything was put in its place. And that's what affixing is. When we put up a shelf on the wall, we affix it to the wall. Nothing was broken before it, but hey, why don't we have a shelf on the wall? Let's put the ocean over there and the land over there, the sky above, the water below, and let's make some order in the world. So Tikkun Olam, it's like affixing the world, meaning helping to put things in their place. A lot of great Hasidic stories, especially Breslov Hasidic stories, talk about the state of chaos, where things are not in their right place. And then the tzaddik comes, which is usually Rabbi Nachman, of course, whom I respect dearly. The tzaddik comes and he puts things in their rightful place. And suddenly, great. Now everything's working much better. So it's not as if anything was broken. It's just there is this movement between chaos and order. And one way of looking at it is that chaos and order is not a linear process. There used to be chaos, and now there's order. But perhaps there's always a level of chaos, and from that level of chaos, or seeming chaos, we create a certain order in that chaos. And then that order, after a while, becomes old and is no longer fresh and is no longer potent and is no longer life-giving and is no longer, the next step is begging to be had. And so that the order that we just had becomes chaos again. Nothing changed in it, nothing changed, but it got we tried to affix. Now it got fixated. And we kind of got stuck in it. And when we get stuck, I don't think the world was meant to be stuck. So once again, if once order was, woman is at home, man goes out to work, earn a living, the wife waits at home with a dinner, waiting for him to arrive. This may have been, the order that our parents, grandparents knew. That is so not relevant today. And not only is it not relevant, we're not there, and the human being, the world, God evolved forward. So does that make it broken? No, it's not broken. It was actually really, it was a wonderful state of order for its time. And thank God, God and God's great wisdom wants to move the story along and evolve and grow and be all more. And that requires,
there is a natural order. Wouldn't you say that the stars move around the planet, or the yin is attracted to yang, or whatever aspect you want to take of it?
Yeah, I'm tempted to say yes, as we always say, yes, but.
But
we can try to delineate like key natural components of order. Spinoza was great at that. I think that was Spinoza's greatest contribution to modernity. Basically claiming he saw natural order as divine. That was divine, and he called it konatos. Konatos was a state where a seed knew, so to speak, that given the right amount of rain or water, it would sprout and become the amazing tree that it was meant to be, meaning there's order. And if no one comes and chops down a tree or damages in any way, or a disease or anything, then this natural order will have its way, and all will be great.
Even if someone comes and chops down the tree or gets a disease, that too is a kind of perfection.
Okay, so now it starts getting complicated. So if that's the case, what's the world? What's the natural order here? Is so you could say that the fall season, when the leaves are so beautiful and green during the spring and the summer, all of a sudden become brown and they start dying. That's obviously not a disease. That's natural order, and it's a great thing for all the good reasons. Is a person coming to chop a tree down in order to build a home for himself or herself? That's natural. We all want to build a home for ourselves, and not enough caves to go around. So maybe that's also part of the natural order. Okay. And if we already have a home, but we want to make a lot of money, so we have a big enough home. We actually, we have enough, everything we need, but we can have more. It's part of human nature to want more. Let's go chop some more trees. We've seen what's happening in Brazil and many other places, just to satisfy our own greed. Is that also natural order? And is that also Tikkun Olam? Is that also cutting down the forest? Is that Tikkun Olam? We usually associated with a form of destruction. So what is and what isn't? And we could say, kind of like, I think we're veering off a little bit, but not that we said we're going to get anywhere in the first place, so why not veer off? So this big dilemma. If something happens, if we look at all kinds of like new age philosophies of what happened was meant to happen, was supposed to happen. There's a part of me that feels very comfortable with those statements. but there's another part of me that doesn't feel comfortable with that at all. What does it mean it was meant to happen? And that's why I also have a bit of a difficulty with natural order. Often people say, God forbid, a child dies young. Around the, in the funeral, we'll often hear people saying, this was not the way it was meant to be. Children were not meant to bury their parents were not meant to bury their children, but the other way around, etc., etc. And it brings up all these questions. So perhaps this question of meant to be, or natural order, or order in general, is maybe that's where the problem lies. Assuming that there is an order, or there should be an order. And perhaps it's this ongoing process of one world order becomes the chaos, or the fixation, or the rot, if you like, of the next phase. And in that case, in that sense, I'd be willing to go along with that. But who decides when the next phase is going to be? So in other words, if we can mostly allow life to happen, I'll say it differently. The one topic I think that will be, I think, helpful for us here is the notion of wisdom, and I'd like to call it divine wisdom. Only as just as a religious person, I feel very comfortable with the God word and with divine and divinity, etc. So, but people can switch the divine with cosmic wisdom if they like, whatever. I have tremendous faith in there being a deep ingrained wisdom within everything, and it's divine. What the plan is, we will never know. We can only make assumptions. We can guess. We can, but kind of knowing that there is deep wisdom within everything changes the whole perspective. So first of all, it means that the world is clearly not broken. If the world is broken, what does that mean about wisdom? It means that, maybe we didn't let wisdom in, or maybe wisdom failed us, or maybe I don't believe in that. I could see how one could believe in that, but I personally don't. I have a strong sense, and I see it all around me, how wisdom is almost the building block of all that is. And I'm in awe when I see that wisdom. So how does that relate to Tikkun Olam then? So I'd like to suggest that maybe when we engage in Tikkun Olam, and we didn't quite say then what it is. We said it's not fixing, but it's affixing. Tikkun Olam then is allowing wisdom to do its work. So if we can look at an example. Global warming is a hot topic, and since it became a hot topic, there's a part of me that was obviously alarmed. And yeah, I'm not one of those who will deny global warming, and I do recycle, and I do the best. I don't know if the best, but I really try and do the best that I can to not to add too much damage to the world, to minimize the damage that I personally cause. But this whole argument, is it man-made, human-made global warming, or is it just nature? You know, the world has always warmed and cooled and warmed and cooled. And is it man-made or not? It's a huge argument between the environmentalists and others. And I'd like to suggest that regardless of what the cause is, it's amazing how wisdom is operating here. And I have deep, deep faith that this wisdom will guide us through this really difficult time. And I heard a great interview on the radio the other day on a science program on the Israeli radio. A great, a professor of environmental studies at Material University was interviewed during the Sharm el-Sheikh convention, and he sounded really optimistic. And it was, first of all, it was really refreshing to hear an optimistic voice. We always hear doom and gloom. Doom and gloom, by the way, means that there's no wisdom, is as little faith in there being wisdom. And he said the most beautiful things. He said, yeah, the world is warming, there's global warming for sure. Things are happening and they're scary for sure. However, what he said was so beautiful. He said, don't look at what the governments are doing or not doing. They're not doing enough for sure. They're failing us. But look, when you go to these conventions, he said, no, I've personally never been, but he has. One of the things that you see is on the sides of the convention are thousands of people who come there who are entrepreneurs and people who have incredible insights. And he said, out of every one of these conventions, the most incredible projects begin. And he gave examples of a few projects that started after the Glasgow convention a year or two ago. And he said, and he gave a few examples, and I was driving the car and I had tears in my eyes just from seeing how amazing this is, that here we are facing this new crisis, and something in the human psyche, something hidden, concealed in the human psyche, drives us towards entrepreneurship, drives us towards finding solutions, and offers this amazing creativity. And things that may actually be the solution to global warming. I mean, we're not talking about just like, oh, well, just let's recycle a little bit better. No, like much, like really reversing the process. And I'm talking about this professor at Tulane University. I'm not talking about a prophet of some kind. So that's wisdom working, and that's the divine kind of working through everything. So what we call order, I'm trying to weave all those things together. What we call order, I think, is a really temporary situation where things are, a new order is formed, which is great. And this new order, a second later, needs to decompose to allow for the next order to come, for the next order to come, for the next order to come. And for us as human beings who love stability, we love and hate stability at the same time. I think it's really difficult. Those times are really difficult. We're living in a really challenging time because the world order is shaking and changing. Democracy is being severely threatened. All conspiracies and all kinds of things are taking over, and we're kind of at loss. And that's what these eras are like, when in transition periods where a certain world order is beginning to crack and change and decompose in order to allow for the next thing in God's wisdom to to arise. And that's Tikkun Olam. That's Tikkun Olam. That's the world being affixed. Not fixed, because nothing is broken, but evolving from stage to stage. And Rav Kook, whom I admire greatly, he believed very strongly in evolution. Now, true, it's not a Darwinian form of evolution, and there are, by the way, a few other theories of evolution. One of them that I appreciate greatly is by Henri Bergson, a great Jewish French philosopher, who I have a feeling that Rav Kook may have been impacted by his writings, or maybe even vice versa. I'm not so sure. But both agree that there's an evolution taking place. There is this divine wisdom is operating in a beautiful way to move this world towards the ultimate good, which could lead us to a great conversation about evil, and
Yes.
to more and more towards the good, the ultimate good. So I think we covered quite a lot in this.
Yes, we did.
Tirade.
So is this the moment then to talk about both a few things, defining Tikkun Olam, or what I've called repairing the world, and you have a much nicer definition, and also a time to talk about good and evil, or good and bad, why bad things happen to good people, the age-old question.
Right. And here we have to come to this question with a lot of humility, because there may be people who are listening, who will be listening to this, who are going through a lot of suffering right now. And our conversation is kind of like, it's really important to say, it's in a certain context. You and I are talking, and so if I were to talk to a person who's grieving terribly for loss of someone, and or someone who's suffering pain, we have the great story, the book of Job, where his 4 friends come to console him. Job is a righteous man. It's quite a legend. The story is a legend. It's important to say it's not a historical account, but it's a legend, and the sages knew that. And we're told that he's a righteous man, and his friends, really good friends, they come to console him because he's suffering terribly. His children are all dead. He lost all his possessions. He himself is suffering a terrible skin disease, and they tell him, listen, you must have done something wrong. You must have. It can't be that you're suffering so much and that you didn't do something wrong. And he insists that he did nothing wrong to deserve this kind of suffering. And they almost tell him, like, how could you say that? It's blasphemy. Clearly God is not a cruel God. And therefore, if you suffer so badly, it must be a form of punishment. Eventually, when Job calls God to like show yourself and give an explanation, so eventually God appears and essentially says, I'm not going to give you an explanation because you won't be able to get it. The finite mind cannot get the infinite. But, which is a somewhat very unsatisfying answer, but it's very, very deep.
You can't handle the truth.
Exactly, one of my favorite lines. Yes, said Tom Cruise to Jack Nicholson. No, Jack Nicholson to Tom Cruise. Right.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what God is saying to Job. But he also says to his friends, his 4 friends, you need to apologize to Job for everything you've said. And if not, you'll be afflicted with all those things that he was afflicted with. because you were indeed totally wrong. It's not a proof that you guys did that Job did anything wrong at all. So he doesn't give us an answer to why bad things happen to good people, but he does tell us what it's not. It's not a form of punishment. It can be sometimes, we all know it can be consequences.
Nor of divine judgment, natural order.
Right, so natural order, I would label it under consequences. If someone, smokes all their lives, their lungs will be
compromised.
Thank you. Good time to cough, and I don't smoke. But their lungs will be compromised. So that's consequences. But what if when a child, God forbid, dies? When a child dies in misery, in agony. So there are people who would explain that in your past life or karma, and I have a lot of respect for the notion of karma.
Or vibration.
However, or what?
Vibration.
Vibration.
In other words, projection of something from within us.
Projection of something from within us. A memory that we bring into the world, even like a past life memory that we reenact. And so all these reasons are often given. But first and foremost, we have to say, we don't know. We don't know why they're suffering. We don't know why good people suffer. And claiming to know, I think, is really problematic. But here we are talking and trying to ponder this question. So from the luxury of this warm place that I'm sitting in, from the comfort of this chair that I'm sitting on, and from the security that I'm feeling, right, safety and security that I'm feeling right now, I'll say the following. I'll say a few things. First of all, in our class here at our synagogue, we talk about the seed, like Spinoza's seed. It looks also wonderful. We put a seed in the ground, the rain comes trickling down, and the seed sprouts, and a tree is formed, and it's so beautiful, just so beautiful and romantic. No, it's not. It's not so romantic and beautiful at all. In fact, if we could look really closely underground, and there are video clips that show that, there's a lot of pain in that process. First of all, the seed itself rots. It rots and becomes like fodder, becomes food for the nucleus, the inner. Now, I'm not a biologist, so I don't want to say things that are not accurate. Some things I do know, some things most things I don't. But you can really see that the seed that looked so beautiful and was dry, was perfect. It rots in the ground, and from within it, the sprout emerges. And the sprout emerges like feeding from the seed that is now dead. It rotted and it's dead, and the sprout comes from, and the sprout is working really hard. The earth is dense, so it has to really try and make its way through the soil, and as it's doing that, it's kind of building its muscles, so to speak. And kind of making its way to the light, somehow knowing where it's supposed to go. We could call it genetics, we could call it, but there's here's this wisdom here, knowing that it's heading up towards the light. Why not go, vertically, as mushrooms do, for example? There's a whole world of mushrooms, which is phenomenal. Or
potatoes. Potatoes go this way.
Oh, there you go. I never thought of potatoes as being intelligent, but I guess potatoes too are intelligent. Or there's intelligence in potatoes.
Well, that's the problem with potatoes, is they go horizontally rather than up.
It's a problem for us because we want to harvest them.
Yes. No, it's a problem in our physiology that when we eat them, that they're less than supportive of us because we're growing upwards and the potato is horizontal.
That's sweet. That's macrobiotics?
Sweet potato, yes.
Okay. Ooh, I don't know if I'm going to eat potatoes ever again, but so it all looks very romantic, but then, and eventually the seed comes out. Now the seed comes out when it rained. The wisdom said, "Go for it, start growing." But as we know in Israel, it can rain, and then there could be a drought of a few weeks or months, and this little sapling is now it needs more rain to continue growing. So now the sun, it meets the sun, and the sun can get really hot, and it needs the rain in order to continue growing. And sometimes it doesn't get that rain, and sometimes it will wilt and die. From our perspective, we see green fields and young trees, and so beautiful. We love nature and order and all these great words that we all use. It's all so romantic. For that sapling, there's nothing romantic about any of that. So first and foremost, there's something about this evolution that I talked about earlier. Evolution is painful. It's painful, but it is evolution. It is, I believe, evolution. I believe it is meaning. It is divine wisdom calling us to grow, and the death of our body is just, I don't want to belittle the death of the body, not at all, but it's a continuation of this wisdom. When the body can no longer be a vessel for our growth, it's time for our holy bodies to return to the earth, and for a new phase to take place, and that's very painful. First of all, it's painful because often it comes along with a horrible disease. We saw with Sheldon just how much suffering there was towards the end, and it wasn't only his suffering; it was your suffering and his daughter's suffering, and there's so much suffering when we die. I know of very few deaths that didn't have some suffering involved. If the people were lucky, so they say, like Moshe Rabbeinu, like Moses, who die, at the age of 120, no disease, just like move on.
Elijah the prophet just rose.
Elijah the prophet even more, just like chariot of fire. But that's so rare. Usually death comes along with a lot of pain. And if not pain for the person who died, before they died, pain for those who miss them terribly, and feel very lonely, and feel very like their whole life got shattered. And so there's a lot of pain. And yet, from the comfort of this place right now, and again, I wouldn't dare say this in the house of mourning, that there's amazing wisdom there, amazing wisdom that's operating there. And that kind of begs the question, so what's evil? So what is evil? So perhaps killing a person, it's one thing when nature takes its course, i.e., disease, cancer, whatever. But what about one person kills another? That's even less romantic. That's even harder to explain. And here there's a beautiful line in Parashat Shmini, in the book of Leviticus, after Aaron's two sons die as they perform their duty in the tabernacle during the ceremony of dedicating the tabernacle. They do something and they bring an alien fire. Not clear what that is. There are a lot of speculations, a lot of interpretations, and fire comes out of the altar and burns them to death. And it's amazing. Aaron, their father, who's part of the ceremony, his response is, or what it says of his response, Vayidom Aharon. And Aaron fell silent. And it feels like the most accurate thing we can do. After we express our pain, falling silent doesn't mean not to express one's pain. Falling silent means don't rationalize it. Don't say, oh, they died because of this and this and this. and all of us rabbis have interpreted that throughout the ages. But nevertheless, there's something about Aaron's response, which is the most authentic, I think. Just be quiet. In the face of unexplained suffering, just be quiet.
Don't ask why.
Don't ask why, or ask why, but ask it as a rhetorical question. Why, but don't expect an answer. And there's a woman that I visit every week. I went to visit her today. Every Wednesday I visit her. She's a Holocaust survivor, and she went through a lot. And she's really old. She's going to be 98 in about 2 months, and she keeps on asking me all these questions, like, you're the rabbi here, so why did this have to happen this way? Why did that have to happen? Why? And I never ever answer or question. There's a part of me, my brain is tempted to answer. Well, you see, do. But the only answer I give her, which even that is like, I feel is sometimes too much. Say, I won't mention her name, but just say, I tell her, I do believe, and it's just a faith, I do believe that when we die, all these questions are going to be answered. There's an answer, I don't know what it is. I don't know what the answer is. But all these, we're going to return back to clarity. We're going to return back to the one. We're going to, and all of this is going to, and suddenly make sense. We're going to go back to infinity, and it will all make sense. That's all I dare answer her. And just listen to her stories and listen to her pain. So basically what I'm trying to say is, first and foremost, I wouldn't want to try and just give a heady explanation to evil. But the only thing I can contribute here, and I'm also looking at the time, and I think we're getting towards the
Just
end,
about.
I think.
Yeah.
Is if we're connecting to the previous conversation, if indeed evolution, and again, we can take Rav Kook's evolution, doesn't have to be Darwinian evolution. In fact, I have a hard time with Darwinian evolution, so I'd rather stick with Rav Kook's evolution towards the goodness. That evolution requires within it what we said earlier, like a new order, the rotting of that order, and a new growth, and that is painful, and we experience that as evil. But if we can connect, instead of connecting to the finite, which suffers the evil, if we can connect with the infinity, the divine wisdom that runs through everything, that permeates everything, that runs the show, that kind of like, if we can identify with that, so to speak, I don't like the word identify, but if we can kind of like lean into that, I think the process will be somewhat easier. And we have to really be careful. We have to be really careful not to bypass the pain, not to refuse to feel the pain. Feeling the pain, I think, is an important part of the process. Grieving is really, really, really important. And trying to bypass grief, the evolution cannot fully happen without grieving that which had to fall away. And the last thing I want to say, and I know it's not, we didn't exhaust anything here. We didn't kind of, but the last thing I do want to say is, the word evil in Hebrew is ra. And it's something I often talk about in our classes. The ra is, first of all, it's an Egyptian word. It's not a Hebrew word, it's an Egyptian word. And in the Hebrew language, it means two things. It means evil, but it also means friend. Love thy neighbor as you would love yourself. In Hebrew is ve'ahavta le're'acha kamocha. Re'acha, your ra, your rea. So it's just something really deep about evil being. There's something that we need to love here. There's something that we need to love here. There's a lot more to it. We don't have time to get into it.
That's really nice. Yeah.
And so again, but it's really important, Ginat, really important to say, for all those who are listening, who are right now suffering on any level of suffering, emotional, physical, spiritual. I really don't want to belittle that. And pain is pain. Pain is pain. And I think trying to avoid the pain is not the cure. But I think going through it and really willing to own it is really important in that evolution towards the good. Can I say one more thing? Or I think our time is up. Or
no, go ahead, please.
Okay, so just as a reminder, if we talk about good and evil, that in the story of creation, there's only good. There's only good. God saw the light, it was good. God saw this, it was good. It was good, good, good. Everything was good. Until the very end of creation, even very good, which some people claim that's the beginning of evil. We're going to put that aside, that theory.
Okay.
The first time that evil appears is in connection with a tree of knowledge of good and evil. In other words, as Maimonides explains, good and evil, it's something to do with human knowledge. And when our human eyes open and our divine eyes shut close, we stopped seeing good. We started seeing good and evil. So it's something to do with our mind, something to do with our brain, something to do with knowledge. I'll leave it at that, even though that can be explored also deeply.
Well, then we're definitely going to have to ask you to come back. You can't leave us hanging like this. Wow, I super appreciate it, Elisha. It's always a pleasure, and particularly tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ginat.
Okay, good.
Bye, Litraot.
Bye, Shalom.